We're going to get started just momentarily here, so. Looks better. Yeah, I mean, those are so glaring. Yeah. Now let's try this. We gotta switch. Sure. Okay. How's the screen look? Good. Screen good. Everybody can see. It's good. I did the thing you're not supposed to do with these slides, and made it inverse, so it's white on black. You're not supposed to do that with presentations. So. Really? Yeah. So hot tip. If you're building a deck, don't do this. Did the wrong thing. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out. I'm Dylan Barry. I am the organizer for the Toronto Mobile.NET Developers Group. We meet once a month. So this is our, let's see, we started in September, so our fifth meeting. Our December meeting was combined with the general group, which I'll discuss in a minute. So we meet on the third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. here at Bright Lane. We're either in this space or there's another event space that we sometimes use when we can't book this space. So our next meetup is Tuesday, February 20th. Topic still TBD because I just had a speaker bail today. So brings me to my next topic. If you'd like to present, please send me a note and we'll get you all set up. If you'd like to present in front of a decent sized group like we have today, show off something you've done with mobile, with Xamarin, around the ecosystem, anything along the lines that relates to the topic mobile.net. If you want to follow us, here's all our links to Twitter and GitHub and Meetup. And we post all the videos on YouTube from the presentation. So we record everything. If you want to go back and see things, it's available on YouTube. We've got a really obscure URL because you need to have 100 subscribers or 50 subscribers or something like that in order to get a properly named URL. So I should have done a tiny URL or anything because this is terrible. But please subscribe to us on YouTube.
I was here thinking, what does ucache mean?
Isn't that terrible? That's pretty terrible. So, yeah, please follow us on social media. We post all kinds of things. Thank you to our sponsor. We couldn't do any of this without our sponsor, Bsi Labs. They provide the food, the event space, me. Bsi Labs is a full-service enterprise mobile development shop. So we do everything from staff augmentation to consulting. We'll take an idea and build it for you and bring it back to you. Consult with your users, launch the app, the whole thing. Talk to you about mobile strategy, full suite. So if you have the need for that, please reach out to us or talk to me after. We can talk about what your needs are and what we can do for you. So you can follow Bsi Labs on Twitter, and we've also got our website up there, bsilabs.ca. I'm also going to plug the general Toronto.NET meetup because they've been very gracious to do a cross-promotion thing with us. So if you're interested in .NET as a general topic, they run a really great meetup once a month. They run theirs out of the Toronto Microsoft office down in the financial district. So that's in the TD Center, the Ernst & Young Tower, which is at 222 Bay Street. Their next upcoming topic is Azure Web Apps and Azure Internet of Things Suite, which is very interesting. So that's next Tuesday at 6 p.m. So I hope I can see some of you again there. Their February meetup, the topic is DevOps for databases with Dave Lloyd, who's a friend of mine, and that will also be a great presentation. So keep an eye on this. You can follow them at Toronto UG on Twitter, and they're on Meetup as well. So that's everything I just covered already. I'd like to invite Tobin up to say a quick bit, and then Mahdi will get started with this presentation.
Good. Thank you very much. Hi everybody, my name is Tobin. I am the CEO of a brand new app called Your Spot Inc. So imagine a world where you're walking down the street and instantly, dynamically, on your cell phone, you figure out how many people are inside of any bar, restaurant, or club, and have access to live pictures and videos of what's surrounding you. So we are creating a social heat map. I have outsourced my development. Now I'm building an in-house team. So I'm looking for an Xamarin developer, either Android or iOS, who has great skills and looking for a side hustle. Someone working full-time wants to have about 20 to 15 hours a week, work on a startup until we raise some VC funding. I'll be here all night. I'm on LinkedIn and I have a business card, so please give me a talk for 15, 20 minutes. I believe you'll be very impressed with the app that I have today. Thank you for your time, and I can't wait to talk from that.
Thank you. All right, so my name is Mahdi. I used to work at Xamarin, and then we got acquired, and now I'm still here at Microsoft. I'm going to talk to you guys today about App Center. So to break the ice a little bit, who here is involved in cryptocurrencies? Just wondering. Really? That little? Okay, so I was going to say, who actually does any real work anymore and just looks at the cryptocurrencies all day? It seems like that's just myself instead here. Yeah. All right, well, that wasn't much of an icebreaker, I guess.
I'll break the ice by swapping the ice around. There. Is it still okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, the video wasn't.
So the reason I was actually going to talk about that was because it crashed like no tomorrow today. I was really upset, happy at the same time. It was a mess. But anyhow, awesome. So I am a TSP. I actually moved to San Francisco 3 years ago. I lived there for 3 years. Then my wife wanted to come back, so we moved back in November. Actually, it's kind of a joke, but I help our Canadian customers with everything that has to do with mobile and App Center and all stuff that you find in Azure, including a lot of our new blockchain as a service stuff, actually, that we have in Azure, which is quite exciting. So who here is a mobile developer? Awesome. Who here has built a mobile app with Xamarin? All right, and who wants to build a mobile app with Xamarin? All right, really? Okay.
I still want to keep those.
You still want to keep them? All right, cool. So the nature of the talk today is just going to be around DevOps and how App Center can really help you guys with all things around it. So I'm just going to go through a few quick slides here. I'm not going to spend too much time in the slides because I'm going to go into the IDE and then, of course, into App Center. I just want to show you the cool stuff that is there for you guys to play around. So let's look at why mobile quality is hard. First of all, there's no such thing as just one app. In reality, you're going to have to support at least 2 different types of platforms across a bunch of different operating system versions, across a bunch of different carriers and manufacturers and etc. And you can start to see how things can get out of hand quite quickly. And the reason that you have to consider mobile testing and DevOps really is because it's incredibly hard to make sure all of your users have the same sort of experience across the board. And DevOps is the key here to making sure that you can quickly build, fix all the bugs that are out there and iterate to get the app out quickly and really make sure that you have the best quality app. So we're going to look over why we have to consider mobile testing and why it's such a hard thing and what can we do to make it easier across the board. So the first thing really is that you have a really extremely fragmented ecosystem. So what that means is that you have Android and iOS, of course, Windows Phone, not so much. On Apple phones, you have to at least support the last 3 versions of the OS. So that means 11, 10, and 9, of course. And then the different screen sizes. So you have the iPhone SE still, which you may want to support. You have the iPhone 6 screen, 6 Plus, which is the 7 and 7 Plus, and the 8 and the 8 Plus, and now, of course, the iPhone 10, or the X, the two weird things at the top there. On Android, you at least have to support things back to, I'd say, Android 5.1. I'm curious to see what you think, Dylan, in terms of how far back you can support Android.
5.1, 4, it kind of depends on the industry.
4, too? All right.
Yeah.
Then on Android, you have a bunch of different manufacturers. Each one has their own skin on top of it. You know, they tend to do things a little, well, wonky sometimes. One thing that might work on one device may not always work on the other Android device that you have. And it's impossible to get every single device that you want to support in-house for you to test it. So, quick story there. I used to work at a company, actually right here in downtown. I'm not going to name them because when the iPhone 6 came out, we had to rush to get an iPhone 6 to support our users on iOS. And there wasn't any available, and no one's going to go stand in line for 4 days just to get an iPhone 6. So we actually got one off the black market from one of my friends. He went and he managed to get like an iPhone 6 that was unlocked and cracked so that we could begin our testing on. So challenge really is that you can't have every single phone in-house, and you can't afford to do testing in a manual fashion because who wants to sit there and tap all day long on a manual screen size over and over again. Every time that you change a bug fix or you update the app, you're going to have to go to the QA and back and forth, and it just takes forever to actually do any sort of testing. And of course, there's obviously the screen sizes. There's just a bunch of different screen sizes across both of these. Challenge 2, of course, is app complexity. I mean, every year we get thousands of new APIs from Android and iOS. You have to support all these APIs. So actually, one example is when iOS 9 came out, they changed the way push notifications work. And if you hadn't supported that new API, then push notifications would not work on iOS 9, the same that they worked on iOS 8. The same thing happened with Android permissions in Android 6.0. They changed how that worked too. So unless you had an early version of Android 6 or you had a phone or you had something to test on, your app would flat out crash or not work on Android 6 when your users wanted to use your app on Android 6. So you have to keep up to date, and you have to keep up to date with all the APIs, backend integrations, and all of the memory and CPU constraints, which is less of an issue on Android, as you guys may already know. And challenge 3, of course, is high user expectations. So, I mean, if your app is slow to load, or it's slow altogether, or it just isn't that sexy, or it's not too polished, no one's going to use the app, and they're going to leave a bunch of nasty reviews, and they are unforgiving. So if you don't take care of that and you don't have a good first impression, it's very hard to get those reviews back up. It's a big deal. I mean, it will bring your app all the way down. And let's be serious. I think that the metrics are that every week there's like 100,000 apps released in the Android, in the Google Play Store. So you have to make sure that your app can stay up to date, to make sure that it can rise up the rankings. And you have to make sure that you have a good first impression, as I already said. Do you guys have any questions? Yes? Are you going to release your slides? I could, I think. Let me get back to you on that. I'm not sure. I've never actually done that. But I should be able to. Ask my boss first. All right, so how do we fix this? This is where DevOps comes into place. So I'm assuming the majority of you guys are developers, right? So you guys know what that word means, of course. I'm not going to go into details of what DevOps means, but in mobile, it's not the same as it is in web. Because in mobile, you can't push the app out to one central place, right? You have to make sure that each and every one of your users actually downloads a new version of the app, or really that they've actually enabled app updates in the first place, which is the worst nightmare for developer, of course, because they tend to not want to do the updates. And I'll be honest, like actually, even myself on my Android phone, sometimes I turn it off because there's like 100 apps I have on my phone, and all of a sudden at once, all 100 of them begin to update, and my phone becomes really slow. So it's a challenge. So you have to make sure that you can, it's not the same as it is in web or any other sort of industry. It's quite unique. And the release cycle is much tighter as well. So let's go into the mobile application lifecycle. Let's actually go here. So actually, let's go back. All right. So you have, your code repository or your backlog, and that can be like Jira or GitHub or anything really, the STS. You're going to build and deploy. You're going to want to do some sort of automated testing. So who's heard of Xamarin Test Cloud? Just wondering. Oops. All right, awesome, cool. So what Test Cloud is we have a whole suite of real phones in a warehouse in Denmark that you can run automated tests on these phones and get responses back in terms of how well the tests actually ran on the phones. So we have 3,500 phones in our test lab across, I think, 160 or so different types of device configurations. And we have multiple copies of these phones. So like, as example, when the iPhone 10 came out, we actually had them in our test cloud just a few days after. And we also tend to run up-to-date versions of the operating systems, not just the up-to-date ones, but every single operating system that was ever supported on that phone. I'll show you guys the website now. So after you run your test scripts, you're going to want to get it out to your users and see how they are using the app. Do they have any sorts of issues? Are there any crashes or bugs or anything? And you're going to take that feedback, rebuild the app, and push it back out again. So it's this endless feedback loop and a cycle. And those companies and those developers that have the tighter cycle are the most I forgot what I was going to say. People who have the tighter cycle, successful. I'm sorry, guys. Paid for it. And this is what the app lifecycle looks with our tools from Microsoft, of course. Now, all of these tools here are now merged into one tool that's called App Center that I'm also going to show you. So let's take a quick break here and just jump into Test Cloud. Let me show you the devices that we have. This is always the cool part here. So you can see we have 3,000. Oh, that would be cool if it was 3,300 devices across Android and iOS, of course. All the operating systems that you can think of, all the way down to Honeycomb and Froyo. Like, no one does that anymore, but it's still there. So let's get something we have. For example, the Note 5, Galaxy Note 5. I used to say we don't have Note 7 because it exploded, blah blah blah, but that's really old. We have the Galaxy S8s, all the iPhones as well. And let's go to something like the iPhone 6 so I can show you guys what I mean by the operating systems. So these are all the operating systems that you have available to you to test your app against. So that's probably the coolest aspect of this. And you can see we have 81 of these iPhone 6s available. So you can imagine, well, there are actually guys who live in Denmark and they work there and they maintain this entire warehouse all the time. They switch out the batteries. A lot of times phones do actually explode They do have to change them as well. So the entire thing is quite a sight to see. I actually haven't seen it yet, but it's actually what I heard. So, do you guys have any questions? I'm just going to pause there for a second.
Can you go to the part of the screen where you can see the things analytics and the apps?
I will get there. Yes, yes. I'll get there. Just go to these slides for 1 second again. All right. So, as I said, these are the top apps that you tend to find in the app stores, and you can see how their average update cycle is so small, right? And it's all about this mean time to resolution. So how quickly can you take a bug that's in the field, identify it, fix it, and push it back out to your users? The top companies that we have actually worked with who do use continuous delivery and DevOps, they tend to have their MTTR down to about an hour, which is pretty impressive. So this is the revolutionary way of building, really. And I find that if you're not using a service like App Center or anything else that does a lot of the grunt work for you, you're spending a lot of time. You are wasting a lot of time having to manually do a bunch of steps in the mobile process, from signing and uploading it to the app stores. There's just a lot of stuff.
Does anybody here have to do that process manually? Like push an app into Google Play or the App Store, so you understand that it's.
Not to scare those who haven't ever, built an app, but yeah, it's a lot to maintain. I'm going to skip over VSTS right now. Let's go into Test Cloud, Xamarin Test Cloud, as it used to be called. So with mobile testing, you have unit testing, and then you have manual testing and beta testing. Now, where UI testing falls into place is it gives you the rapid iterations and the highest test realism. So you're not running unit tests per se on these phones. What you're doing is you are testing the UI to make sure that the user experience is the way that you want it to be, and that those test scripts that you write pass on all those phones. As an example, if you were to make an update to the content inside a button, and it does the dimensions of the button, like cut off the text, stuff like that. It's all about UI. And you can use Test Cloud with any sort of source repository system or anything. So you can use it, TeamCity or Jenkins or VSTS. It really doesn't matter. We have a whole. The entire thing is API driven, so you can upload the tests after every build or every pull request or something, and run that test on those devices. So let's go into the beta distribution portion here. So has anybody used HockeyApp? Have they used HockeyApp? Right. So HockeyApp is, or was, a beta distribution and crash reporting tool. So what it would allow you to do is you can essentially choose to bypass the app stores, as an example, if you have a specific list of users who want to sign up and use your application. And you can also get a whole bunch of analytics and crash reports and event tracking metrics into HockeyApp. And just see how users are using your app, and are they using the app the way that you expected them to. And at the end of the day, all of these previous tools are now merged into App Center, which is a new tool from Microsoft. It was in preview for a few months, but it got released into stable, I think, in around that time frame. So let's actually jump into App Center now, and I'll show you guys that stuff. So no more slides. Do you guys have any questions before we get there? Yeah.
So Hockey App is still around.
Hockey App is still around. And
Is there any date?
Cutoff date. Yeah, May. In May, Hockey App is probably going to, from what I've heard, is going to be sunset. So
It will be like a switch. And stop, and then everyone will be redirected.
yes, however, those users, so actually let's just go into App Center here. No, just show you guys what happens when you're in home. So I have a whole bunch of apps here. Those apps that are in Hockey App will get pulled into App Center automatically. So all these ones that have a Hockey App logo there, these are in Hockey App, and we are actually pulling the information in here for you as well. So they have been pushing, they have a lot of things inside Hockey App website that encourages you to move to App Center. And I would actually much prefer App Center. Yep.
I haven't done OCAP for a long time, but I think in OCAP we had the ability to know the profile of the user when there's a crash or something like that. This user will have this email name, with the user. And I don't know if there is something equivalent now. Before OCAP closed, I don't know how to track.
The tracking part, I think that came about because you had a client app on Hockey App. But you don't have a client app yet for App Center. They are working on a client app that is also going to be there for App Center. But in the meantime, like how I have gone around is I actually add those to the events that I track as extra properties. Yeah. Or there's this whole notion of custom properties as well in Hockey App. In App Center, where you can attach custom properties for your user as well, and I'll show you how that works too. Yeah, any other questions? Yes.
How does the Hockey App actually get the stack traces? If I understand the workflow here, you upload the app to the Hockey App, then the user runs it on their phone. I'm missing the flow, and if it crashes, is it reporting with the Hockey App to get the stack?
So the user downloads the app from Hockey App, right? So you have to sign the app, you push it into Hockey App, right? And then the user will have to download that from there. So it's not like they download the app from the app stores or anything. I mean, you could also, if you didn't want to use the distribution functionality in apps, I keep saying Hockey App and App Center, but I mean App Center only. Don't go to Hockey App anymore because it's dead. So in App Center, so if I were to distribute an app, I can give the URL to the end user, or they'll receive, a email or something, and they can download the app from that specific URL. And then App Center has this whole logging system where it will attach a crash report or whatever that happens on that app. So you have, bits and pieces of code in your application that instantiates App Center, starts App Center. I'll go through those. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, of course. That was the logical.
My question was related to that. What is the ACK
for App Center? Oh, it's the same. It's in NuGet. No, it's in NuGet. Yeah. So you have to go into NuGet or into the packages of your app and download App Center. You cannot have Hockey App coexist with App Center in your app. So you have to make sure that. No, yeah. Yeah. I'll actually show you how that works. So when you first log into App Center, if there are no other questions. So when you log into App Center, you have a list of the orgs that you're part of, right over here. Is Zoom good on this? It's good, right? Okay. So I have a few orgs here. Here's my org, right? Mahdi Alirezaie. You can add a new app, and it's extremely simple. So let's say I want to add an app that's called Mahdi's app. I can give it a description. These are the operating systems that we support. And you don't have to be on a Xamarin app in order to use App Center. We support everything from Objective-C, Swift to React Native. Cordova is coming out, is in preview, Mac OS. Android, of course, there is Java as well. So it doesn't have to be a Xamarin app.
What about
Unity, not yet. I don't know about Unity. But, yeah, I don't know.
Well, Unity is just
It's just a
.NET app,
it's
right?
.NET app.
You could
I think you could
technically,
Xamarin.
yeah,
You tried?
you could integrate the SDK.
Oh, you haven't tried.
directly.
Okay. Try that.
Yeah, but Java don't Java built that.
Yeah.
But I think for
This is better for
Yeah. Plus, VS for Mac is also now the default ID for Unity. So, yeah, I'm assuming you should be able to just. I'm not entirely sure. So you
I
give it a
would think,
try.
because like
I would think you should be.
your packages would just be APKs and IPAs, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, why wouldn't you be able to distribute and also monitor your app using App Center?
Yeah.
When the SDK can be integrated to the name,
What was that again?
the SDKs
For App Center?
and we put the natively on each platform.
Yes, we do have the SDKs on each. Yeah, yeah. If it's a Xamarin app, then you're going to be getting it from NuGet, but you still have them available for all the other platforms. Yeah. And it actually gives you the instructions. So say I had an Objective-C app or Swift. I can add this app, and it gives me, okay, integrated using CocoaPods. You have to install CocoaPods and integrate App Center there. And they are broken down into just the core App Center, the analytics, the crashes. There's App Center push notifications as well, and distribution. So there are 4 separate packages, so you don't have to use everything. And they did that on purpose. So we give you flexibility there. And of course, there are the instructions if you're going to do it in Objective-C as well. So that's actually the thing that I was talking about here, where you're going to have to initialize App Center. Did I hear a question? No? So let's go back here into my org again. Let's just add a Xamarin app because I'm a Xamarin guy. And what I want to show you is how quick and easy it is to start the build and the CI process. So who here has set up a CI server? How long did that take you?
Too long.
Too long, right? Awesome. So with this, you just point and click. So I can select these 3 cloud-hosted services at the moment. I have GitHub. It's already actually linked into my GitHub as well. The app that I'm going to show you guys today is Face Off. And you just click it. It knows that I was choosing a Xamarin iOS app. It shows all the branches that I have. I can configure the build. And I'll say, okay, go and build the iOS project with which configuration, which version of Mono, which version of Xcode. You can have build scripts as well, which I'll get into detail about it. You can choose the build type, the frequency of the build, so it's either going to be on every push or manually. And you can automatically increment the build number as well. So I like to do it, through the build ID. It can be a timestamp as well, but I prefer build ID. You can set environment variables during the build process. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And you can sign your app and also distribute that app to your users and collaborators as well. So if I were to set this up, we're going to make this a simulated build. There's no environment variables. We're not going to assign anything. And I'm just going to save and build. And it's actually going to go out and start to build this. So first thing you might have noticed is that we give you hosted Macs. So you don't need to do anything with your own Mac anymore. We host them for you using the infrastructure, the BSTS. And it's pretty sweet, I'm not going to lie. This will probably take a few minutes to build. So while that is going on, we can go to...
Just got a little anecdote. So these build agents, the Mac build agents that are part of this ecosystem, the client I'm working with currently has on-prem build agents. They have their own build agents. We need to have control of our build environment. So the security update for what are those two SPs?
Oh, those two Intel things?
Yeah. Yes. Those are the security patch came down the line. They updated their machines. Those stopped working. All stopped working. Everything was failing. We couldn't push out updates, so they were trying to troubleshoot it. Meanwhile, I said, let's use the cloud agent. So we switched over, and with absolutely
and it failed.
No, we actually didn't have to do anything. We just switched it over to that build agent, and we were ready to go. We were pushing out updates again. So yeah, this is super helpful to have the Mac agents available through BSTS and through AppSlam.
Yeah, that failed, of course, because my repo, I put in an error there if you don't put in an emotion API key. So I'll show you what that means. I'm just going to branch over quickly. So this app is called Face Off. It's in GitHub. It essentially uses the Microsoft Cognitive Services emotion API to rank you, to actually score you based on how well you make a face. So this morning when I woke up and I saw my crypto portfolio lost 35% of its value, I was surprised. And I'm like, that's not a very good surprise face. That's not good. Okay. That was literally me. 39%. So that's not very good. Yeah, 99.39.
It's the label.
What's the rest?
It's just the label model.
Oh yeah, there you go. What I just said about
We should have ran that through
some testing. Exactly, 100%. So there you go, 99.3. That's exactly my face this morning. And the point of the game is to actually play this with a colleague. I'm actually working on turning this into a game that you can play with anybody else. Doesn't have to be there. And then here's another surprise face. So my wife's actually really wanted me to buy her a Chanel bag. And instead of doing that, I bought more crypto today with that money. So I'm like, you don't need that bag, but I need this crypto right now because it's up. So this is another surprise. And it scores you, and then it tells you who won. It doesn't tell you who won. But you can see that I got an 89% compared to myself previously. So it's a cool game. Now, the way that I've set this up in App Center, we actually go into the branches here. We'll see that I actually built this last night to make sure that it works for today. There's a whole list of beacons here. So each and every one of these is a different thing, of course. We have the build tab, we have the test tab, distribution tab, crashes and the analytics, and the push notifications as well. So let's go into the test tab for a second here. So what these tests are just launch tests. So in the build configuration, I have told it to just launch a quick test on a real device. It just will launch the application. That's all it does. So it doesn't do too much at the moment. But if we go into the test tab, we'll see, as an example, I launched this on one phone. The app does launch, and this was on an Apple iPad Pro. For some more interesting test results, let's look at this other app that we have in App Center. It was built by my colleague Colby. He's a fantastic developer, and this app XWeather is on GitHub as well. If you want to take a look at a really well done Xamarin app. So we can see here that he tested this on 42 different phones. 0, which passed the test, 2/3 of the test passed with a 67% completion rate. And if we go into the test, we start to see all of our phones side by side. So this is exactly what Xamarin Test Cloud is, but it has come into App Center now for you to use. So here are all the phones that he tested this app on. You can see what they look like on all the different form factors. We can click on a specific phone. Let's go into a 6 Plus as an example, and we can start to go through this test script here. So you might ask yourself, okay, how are these screenshots actually generated? So in the test script, which you can do in C#, which is from our library called UI test, you actually specify, okay, it's like app.screenshot, which takes you screenshot at that specific time of your test script. And that's how it knows actually when to take the screenshot here. So these screenshots coincide with these steps, of course, and you can see the hardware usage and the CPU usage on the side as well. So as an example, if you see perhaps somewhere the CPU usage spikes for some reason, you can, diagnose that and see, okay, why did that happen here on this specific screen, as an example. You can also view logs of the test, of the device and the test. And when an app doesn't pass the test, so here's an example, when the searches for the word San Francisco in the weather tab, the app crashed. Probably not on this device. Oh yeah, it did. On all phones. And we can go into the log and see why the test failed. So it says that it actually wasn't able to tap on a specific UI element on the screen at that time. Do you guys have any questions with regards to the test tab and what it does? What it looks like? I'm sure you guys probably want to know how you write a UI test, which is a whole different topic. I'd be happy to do another meetup on that if you think that makes sense. Best practices UI testing.
Would people be interested in that for show of hands?
For mobile UI testing.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So that's what the test beacon looks like. What the test beacon also allows you to do is have these named device sets. So this wasn't available in Test Cloud, for those of you who have used it, but you can actually come in here and create a device set and say, okay, for this specific test run, use these specific devices that are in this device set. So as an example, here's all supported devices, memory constrained, top 10 phones, and etc. And it's really easy to actually create a new device set as well, which is pretty useful.
You just go to the top and enter iOS.
You'd have to actually create that device set yourself. So, so it's just named top 10 iOS. It's actually not even named top 10. It's just iOS 10 phones. So here, so I'm just going to call it, new iOS device. Let's say iOS 11, and use the X on 2.2 and 11.2 and 8 plus. You can just add those. You create your device set. And I just did that in Colby's App Center. Hopefully, you wouldn't mind the fact that I just did that. Oh man. Okay. So if we're done here, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm just going to move into distribution making. So the distribution beacon allows you to distribute your app to certain groups, certain users, and also the stores as well if you want to actually link iTunes or Intune or the Google Play Store. You can also connect that to the store. I'm not going to do that under his account this time. I'll probably do that under mine later. So we can come in here and view all of the different people that he's added here as testers. You can view the releases that were done, which devices people have here. So it's pretty detailed. You can export the UDIDs as well, which is a useful feature here. You can also make certain people public testers. So what that means is that they're external testers who see where that tab was. So you can, yeah, right here. It's a public page, and I have to see how that's. There we go. Through the allowed public access. So this lets anyone actually download the app from a public link. So you don't have to have their information.
So this replaces the Fastlane component that there was a Fastlane component that had to do this, and you had to host it yourself.
Yeah.
And it was like built on Ruby on Rails. So this nice.
Just place it. Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah. Just one switch. You guys have any questions on the distribution part? And I'll show you what that actually looks like as well, in terms of what the distribution looks like. So what? Yeah.
So on iOS, for like if your app's not published, you have to add actually like the phone or the device of the user or your
The UDID,
file.
Yeah.
How is it done? Is it? Would you add the for this public option? Would you have to add the device ID of the tester?
So they're not able to register with your thing, and I think this is done with that option that you have in with Expo to sign as developer. Yeah. No. Well, it is part of the version profile, but there's an option that allows you to add on distribution on enterprise add-on distribution.
Yeah.
But there's an option that allows you to do up to like 100 phones, I think.
Yeah, that's what the developer.
That's what the developers do.
Yeah.
You have to.
You have to add.
You only have to use test.
I'm an Android guy, by the way, just in
Yeah,
case.
the iOS from the ID to put it on your
To put it in the version profile, right? But the public URL here, I guess, in your that's
if the iPhone is already one of
if it's in your profile, yeah.
company, for instance, or you didn't know that.
So you still need.
You'd still need their UDID.
Yeah. So Fastlane. So I don't know if there's any plans in motion for this, but I know there's a Fastlane component out there that actually will help you register the UDID. And yeah, sign is that the one? Yeah.
Hotkey would get you the UDID.
Yeah. So App Center.
So I'm assuming once the client app comes out for App Center, you'd have a way of getting UDID from whoever is down there. It's because there isn't a client app yet. That is the reason. And actually, just in case you guys are curious, right? This is actually what I meant by the client app, where it used to. So this was a client app in Hotkey app, so you had to actually create a Hotkey app account. You would then go ahead and download the Hotkey app, and then that's how I would know what your UDID is exactly.
Yeah, but that's only for
It's only through the website.
Yeah. Even that link you have there is
Yeah. I just meant that it is an app that you have to download. Yeah.
on Android there is an app.
On Android, there is an app. Yeah.
Right.
But
The website, you registered a certificate and then that allowed the website to access.
to access your, so the it is coming out, from what I've heard. So we just have to stay tuned. Are there any questions with regards to distribution time?
Integrated with test flight?
Is it integrated with test flight? I thought, yeah, you can release your stream to test flight.
That's great.
Any other
And
questions?
Intune, I was asking about Intune integration, so yeah.
I need this.
Yes.
Excuse me. Any other questions on the distribution? Okay, so let's do something cool now. This is not safe. Okay. Let's go into the iOS app that I have here. So you can see how my build is set up here. And this is kind of how I like to do things. So you may have like, you know, a dev version of the app, like release or like production. So if you have like multiple versions of the application, right? And typically it's not good to keep your private keys inside the source code. So you'll see here so here's actually the app that I have. You'll see that I have, it's actually Xamarin Forms app, but I'm not going to get to that right now. We'll see that in the main stuff in the application here. If I am building this for release, you can ignore these keys because they're actually dummy keys. But I have placeholders here for the iOS key, the Android key, and then the Emotion API key. And what I do is through the use of those build scripts that you have, there are 3 types of build scripts that are supported in App Center. One is pre-build, post-build, and post-clone. So in the iOS source, I have this App Center pre-build shell script. And all I'm doing here is I'm replacing in the keys.cs file with the string emotion key with this environment variable that I have here that's called emotion key. That environment variable exists right here. iOS App Center keys and emotion key. Now I like to also change the App Center key. So that means that if I have, as I said, 3 different versions of the application in dev, test, and in production as an example, then I have those 3 apps in App Center as well. And I don't want to have the analytics be all messed up and merged all together. So I'll switch the App Center key for this specific device that's used during the application startup. And that app startup really is right over here. I have this appcenter.start, where you pass in the Android key and the iOS key. So these are dynamic, I guess, if you want to call it that way, and I inject them with the environment variables during the build process, as well as the emotion key as well. And I've had this set up such that it builds it on every push into here. And the build script, of course, is a pre-build. So I can come into here as an example. I can, let's change the bar background color to color.black. Blue violet. So there we go. I have made a change. I'll go into GitHub Desktop. I still have the old client. Yes, I know. I don't like the new one. It's confusing enough. And I'm just going to show you guys changed the background color. You know, commit and sync. Master, of course, which you probably don't want to do, is probably going to be in a bunch of different branches. So the app here had a blue background color, right? At the top here. And we can go into App Center and see, okay, there we go. It actually kicked off the build. And it was one where I changed the background color. So we're just going to wait until it's done. And then you'll see that the next time I start this application, I'm going to get a pop-up that says, hey, there's a new version of the application that's available. You have to install the app. one note, it does not send a push notification to your device when a new version is available. It only checks on the application startup. So if you want to have it where you send a push notification, that's it's going to have to be some custom stuff, which isn't hard because I have done it, and I'll be happy to explain that as well. So while this is building, let's go into the crashes tab. The app hasn't crashed because I don't crash in my apps. My apps don't crash. Let's go to Xweather. Let's look at some crashes here. There you go. So that was one example of the crash where there's a null reference exception. You can view the details here. You can change the status of this, and actually this will integrate with whatever sort of bug tracker that you're also using. So we can also change the status of the bug there. You can click on the specific report, view the threads, view the events. So what the events does is that you have to track all of the things that you want to track in your application. So if I want to track, as an example, when the app was started or the app was resumed or a button is clicked, I have to make a call to App Center to track that specific event. And then those events will show up here. So you kind of have like the breadcrumbs as to like what the user did up until that point in which the application crashed. And you have the option to send attachments as well. So crashes are collected automatically. You don't have to do anything to upload the crashes, but if you want to add things in the attachments, then that's where you're going to have to attach variables or attach files into your report. So let's go into.
I have a question about crashes.
Yep.
You can track it down to the line of the class to do the extension, right?
Yes.
Because it was only showing up the stack trace, right? Exception. Can you like track it down to the line of the code that includes the exception?
Set data.
Like the file that where it happened. But it's not like showing like the file in this one.
Xweather.w location.
You have to have symbols.
You have to have symbols, yeah.
Yeah.
And the only service that also gives you the C# stack trace is only App Center. So nothing else will give you C# stack trace, as far as I know. Which I know. Yeah. So I was going to show next was actually the analytics tab. So you get an overview of your active users, how long their sessions were, what sort of countries they're in. As you can see, I have users in Denmark. That's because Center Test is in Denmark, and that's how it goes. You have a log flow as well, so you can see that I am actually using the app right now. I'm going to reset. I will take a new photo. I'm looking scared. Now these logs should start to appear here, so you can see that. There you go. I click the reset button. And tap on the button. This is quite self-explanatory. If you go into the events tab, you can view the events, and this is the part where I was saying it's up to you to sprinkle all the bits and pieces of code in your application to log those events that you want to log. So as an example, when the app starts, I do an App Center track event where the name of the event is app started. And you can see the count per user. And this is a custom property that I've sent up, where this is my username. And the way that's done in code is actually pretty simple. So I'll apart from the App Center start call, that's at the constructor of the app, when the app actually starts, I do this, analytics helper.track event. So I like to wrap all my calls to analytics in a helper class, which just helps me in the case that I want to not use apps. God forbid. But I don't want to use apps. But yeah, this just helps because then if you ever change an SDK, you don't do it in one spot, not all throughout the app with the Control F place and everything. So here you can see I have a dictionary where I have the username, and that's actually pulled from my application settings. And the track event here, I add the username key before I track the event. I think you can add up to 20 of these properties. I don't actually remember, but you can add enough, let's just say. And that's how I track the username, as an example. Now, you might have seen this thing here where it's like a caught exception. And that's because we don't support managed exceptions yet. So you can't report these yet. So I've kind of hacked it here.
So just a note on this, everyone should go find the issue for this on GitHub and complain. We've been asking for this, the community's been asking for this for a while because it was in Xamarin Insights, the original precursor. And it was never ported forward. So yeah, it's an annoyance for me. I think it showed why it's an annoyance.
It is an annoyance, yeah. But it didn't give for me. They're working on it. Let's put it that way. So what I do is like this hacky sort of thing. I have this report call where I send the exception, caller file path, the line number, and the caller member name. And I just add those to the analytics. So it ends up looking really crummy like this, where the crash happened and I have the constructor or the file path, the line number, and using it. I mean, it's not the best, of course, but it works right now, at least until they come out with the update. It should be like appcenter.log, crash or something.
Or just log exception.
Or just log exception, yeah. This one? Caller file path, caller line number. These attributes. Yeah. In system runtime compiler services. You can do anything. So that's how you track events. Sorry, yeah. My throat's too dry. Are there any questions on how these event tracking things work? No? Awesome. So, let's see if the build completed. Is it really still building? Wow. Oh, device testing. I completely forgot about it. That's why it's taking so long. It'll hopefully be done soon, and then you'll see that I'll be able to update the app. So I also actually have this in Android as well, right here, and the build for Android is already completed. Because of the testing. So that's why I'm on Android. I just got an iPhone 8 Plus actually. So see how that goes. The last thing I wanted to go over was push. So who's done push notifications in apps? All right. Isn't it complicated? Like, it seems like it's easy at first, but the process of just sending a stupid push notification takes so long, and you have to do everything in Firebase and whatnot, and get the registration token. So for those of you who don't know, these annoying push notifications that you receive are annoying to set up in the first place. But App Center makes it really easy, and this is probably like my favorite part about this because I think it's done through Flexion and actually method swizzling in iOS. All you got to do is just add the package. You don't have to do anything else. So I'll show you here. I've set up Android push notifications. And of course, you still have to go into Firebase and get your registration token and download the Google Services JSON file. But after you integrate App Center push right here. Oh, by the way, if you guys want to see, you just go to Add Packages and you type in App Center. Yeah. So the analytics crash is distributed push. I should probably update mine because I update. But after you've added App Center push, if you have a Xamarin Forms app, which for those of you who don't know is a way of building a native app that gives you close to like 100% shared code, close to 100% shared code. But so this app is actually a Xamarin Forms app. It's as easy as having this one call right here. Push notification received. Get the summary. If there's any custom data added, and then just display an alert. Yeah, that's it. You just have to subscribe to this one event. That's all. So as an example here, here's the Android app. I'll go into iOS. Yeah. So I set this up on Android. And I'll send a test notification. So what App Center Push is it replaced a product called Azure Mobile Engagement. So it's kind of designed for marketers in the sense that you want to send out like a manual push notification. But because everything that was done in App Center was done with this API first sort of mindset, all of the features in App Center are available from the App Center APIs. And I've actually used that for the push notifications as an example because it's just so easy on the client side of it. So I'll say, okay, hello, this is a test. Hi. You can send it to all of your devices or a custom device list by the install IDs. The limit here is kind of annoying. But this limit only exists when you are creating audience, which I'm not going to get into too much here. But what the install ID is, actually, each time a user installs your app, there's a unique install ID that never changes as long as they don't uninstall the application. So each time they update the app, that install ID stays the same. And you can track that install ID if you wanted to. I actually do that here, I think. You just get the install ID async, and it's just going to be a GUID, and then I just convert it to a string. And you can set up these custom properties as well. Where the custom properties show up is in this part. So I can create a new audience and add a rule where the app version or the country or the mobile carrier or the username or the install ID. So you see how these two came up here? And that's because I set these as custom properties. So I can say, you know what, send it to whoever has a username Mahdi. And all this is also accessible from the APIs too. So that's 100% of my users. Don't have too many users. And I click save and click next. Send notification, and we should see here, boom, there's a notification that just came up. So you can tell it's a push notification too, because if I close the app, should come up, right? It did. Ethereum crashed. So it's very easy to use, and the APIs are pretty cool here as well. So as an example, if you want to send a push notification out to your users when an update is available, for example, we have the customer who has an app that's built in Xamarin, but it's in kiosk mode, so like it's always open. It never is intended to be closed. So how do you update the app if you cannot send a push notification, right? Because you can't just always, you know, pull App Center and ask, hey, is there an update available or whatever? So there's an Azure function that I helped them write, which you can trigger via webhook. So I just put in the URL of the Azure function that I have, and that integrates with the App Center API and sends out a push notification whenever there's an update available, when a new app version is available, as an example. So it's pretty cool. You can integrate things into like Slack, as an example. You know, whenever there's an update available or a new crash script is detected as well. Do you guys have any questions on push? Is there anything else you guys want to see as well? I'm kind of forgetting what else I wanted to cover. Yes? Release notes. The release notes are pulled from release notes. That's a good question. Because from what I've seen, the comments that I put when I merge, those comments come straight out here. That's because of the way that I had this set up. So release details.short version, release details.release notes. So I have to see where this release details object is, and then you'll be able to. I think when. Okay, well, let's see. So this one is the iOS app, right? Really? I shouldn't have done a test on this iOS app. But when I think my Android device has this, so let's see. So I got actually the push notifications here as well. And when I open the face-off app here, right, it's going to open, and there's a new version available that says change background color. Change background color. So that was in the description and the summary of what I said. I'll have to check and see where that came from. Because there's, I'll have to get back to you on that.
So it's picking it up from GitHub, right? From your
it's picking up from GitHub, yeah. But then when I commit through the desktop client, so maybe because it's on desktop client, like I can't really notes or anything. But if I go into GitHub itself, I can do it.
maybe.
I'll have to check that. Do you guys have any other questions? So as an example, I'll just have to click on download and install, and it's going to go about installing the application and launching the new version. I would use Visor, but it didn't work. I just got this MacBook, and a bunch of stuff don't work. So it just opens up again. That's just what the process looks like. And you can see the bar is purple too. So yeah. That was the update that was made. Oh, iOS finished, right? Okay, that one I can't show. We'll see what that looks like on iOS as well. Okay, well, that was interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll grab that one.
Yeah, sometimes, so this actually should work. I'm curious as to, oh, I may not have distributed this one to my, to the correct set of users here. So that could be the reason. iOS group. Yeah, because this one is in the collaborators, so that's why I didn't get this. Unfortunately, I think. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. We waited 20 minutes and nothing happened. The last thing that I kind of wanted to cover, and of course, if you guys do have any sorts of questions, please feel free to ask me. I didn't really have a set schedule, so I'm just going through App Center. But it's going to take you guys to the export option. If you have application insights, you can link this up to your Azure subscription and export things every day into application insights, which is useful if you use App Insights, if you want to build a Power BI dashboard or something. And of course, they are the docs and the APIs. So they're very detailed. And I think it's openapi.appcenter.app. So these are all the APIs that are available to you to use. They're all documented here. So as I said, it was built with this API first approach to make it as easy as possible to integrate with whatever you want. And of course, support and any sort of feedback. This takes you to the PMs actually on the App Center team. So if you ever have any sorts of questions, feel free to ask them here, please. We use this feedback in the development of App Center. Are there any other questions or topics you guys want to see? Yes.
Can you confirm that you can develop IS functions that lead us to a lot of guys?
I didn't quite get that. Could you?
So can you also
So App Center is just the service that manages the cloud build and the distribution. All the actual building of the app itself is going to have to be done on a local machine. So here I'm on a Mac and I'm using Visual Studio for Mac. To build this out, you can also use Visual Studio on your PC, but then you need to have a Mac there that acts as the, it's called the Mac agent, which will connect to your PC and allow you to build a test. That's if the app is a Xamarin app. If you are building this in Objective-C or Swift, then that's all going to be done in Xcode. So this app specifically is a Xamarin app, and that's just a way to build a native mobile app from C# instead of having to use Java.
and it was
App Center will build the code, but you have to make sure that you have an app that actually works.
Yeah.
Before you send up apps.
Technically, you could do it, but you
Yeah, you wouldn't want to. It would be very. Yeah.
Also, to be able to build and release, you need your certificate. For that, you can generate them in 401 this month.
But thankfully, this user group is .NET mobile user group. So, we should probably have a bunch of other talks on how to build this.
Probably someone else is doing the same. What is the price?
Okay, cool. I'm glad you asked that because that's something I forgot to go over. So, the pricing is free. It is free. Actually, there's a lot of stuff you get for free. Service. No, not here. Where is it? Maybe mine is free. Billing. There we go. So, this is a free plan. We give you a lot of free stuff. So you have one concurrent build available with the free plan, unlimited build hours, and you get a 90-day trial of test. Basic push notifications are also free if you want less than 5 audiences. The ability to test actually after the 90-day trial expires is $99 per month per device per currency.
four build hours per month on the free. So you must have already have a paid one. You've got a Microsoft.
I have a Microsoft build button.
Yeah.
One concurrent build, 4 build hours per month.
4 build hours per month, 30 days.
So just so everybody knows, to actually get unlimited builds with either a VSTS pipeline or through this, like it says down there, it's $40 a month. Probably probably well worth your time instead of trying to maintain your own build machine.
Yeah.
For most cases.
And if you have like, you can do all of the billing through Azure as well if you have an Azure subscription, or if you have, like a MSDN license, or yeah. With BizSpark, that probably gives you like a bunch of stuff too. So there is a lot of free things you can manage to extract from them. Then you have the ability to configure this however you want. So there we go. Now it says full. Yeah. So you can say, okay, 2, 3, 4, 6. How many tests do I want, and how many push notifications I want as well.
Oh yeah. Did you glance at crash reports?
I did.
Yeah. And it's free, right? That's
yes, crash reports are free. Event tracking.
So all the analytics and distribution are.
The analytics and distribution is free. Yeah. The build and the test, which you pay for, and the push.
Notifications are. You need the notifications?
If it's less than 5 audiences, it's unlimited.
So I want to send a notification to all of the 5.
Yep. That'll be just 1 audience.
Mahdi, do you know if there's anything in the pipeline? Sorry. Do you know if there's anything in the pipeline to pull down some of the analytics data from the Play Store and from the App Store? Because I know I built some pretty crazy spreadsheets that pull in all that data, like from, basically Power BI to pull in data from Hockey App, from the Play Store, and from iTunes. So is there any plan to have that done?
Have that done and then like come to here and then go.
Yeah.
That would be.
If we're linked to up to iTunes Connect, really.
Yeah.
Something like Android, with the supported and unsupported devices, it's impossible. You cannot have a CSP list of which devices you have to support according to the app. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going
something you don't know
into
what you build your app.
Yeah.
And they will decide which devices have support or not. They give you the list, but there is no way to do that. I have to do that manually.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I do know the PMs on AppCenter. I mean, if that helps, you guys can give me the feedback that you guys have.
That'd be really nice. And I've had people ask me for that too, and I've helped them build really not Power BI, Power BI, just using Excel as my tool to pull that data. Yeah. So that would be really useful to have in there. It would be like a pretty big beacon.
It would. Yeah. Definitely. All right, take that back for sure. Anybody else have any questions on App Center? Anything in the code you guys wanted to see or anything?
If we want to make a change, like the way App Center builds or app, like it's a variable. Meaning, when I develop, I have a way of building the app, and I want the app to behave in a certain way. If I want the app to build App Center to behave another way, is there a way to change like the CS bar or the line of the app through App Center?
To change the SLN? So what do you mean? Like,
Or the CS bar?
To change the CS bar?
For instance, I have some documents in iOS.
Yeah.
I want those documents on App Center. I have other documents to be there.
Yeah. Another one's brought in. I'm thinking if you'd be able to do that through that script, through the pre-build.
It's not that
That's how you
pass. That's how scripts.
with the scripts.
So I think that would really change. Yeah. I know Scott, you had a similar setup with computing hack. You wanted to dynamic source of. Yeah. We're talking about just like swapping files out.
Yeah, that's like it. They'll all do the same thing with
Yeah.
I use those scripts for changing out names and
Yeah. Into the source. That is much more. Yeah, the thing about App Center is, like, I don't know if you guys know this, but you don't really have this concept of a build definition, right? It just goes and builds it up for you. You don't know what the hell it's doing, right? But last I heard, there is this. They are doing things to make sure that you have like a definition. You know, like if you wanted to add like a test step, as an example, to modify what happens in the build process. But to be honest, for all intents and purposes, right now, if you're doing anything that is as complex as that, you should just stick with the test case. Right? It's just. Yeah. 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 You can distribute it from the XDS into App Center as well.
So, Mahdi, I know you showed us the bash scripts for the iOS build. What type of scripting languages do you have available for iOS, and what do you have available for Android?
For iOS and Android, I think it's only Bash.
It's just Bash all around.
Yeah. For Windows, it's PowerShell.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Since Windows now supports Bash.
Yeah. So you have post-clone, pre-build, and post-build.
Oh, PowerShell.
Yeah, for UWP.
Oh, for UWP only.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything else.
Okay.
Yes.
In terms of analytics, also about how level.
How many users you have with that?
Doesn't buy it for high school, but how deep go for a CD?
No, that's some stuff that you probably want to track yourself through the properties that I mentioned.
So you could do something like grabbing location data when you have loads, and then storing that in the metadata that you're reporting for the event. So
that could be like in the custom properties as well if you want to.
Yeah.
It would probably be in the metadata of the events as well.
Yeah. For something like that, you might even want to build something outside of App Center. That seems like, depending on how you want to use that data, you want to have a custom or dashboard. So think about these tools is they're really, really great to get you up and running. Really, really fantastic from what I've found. At a certain point, if there's more complex requirements behind it, you're going to have to go out, you're going to have to start adding on. So you're going to have to build something custom or try and extend what's already there to collect some of that information. That's for the more complex analytics and requirements that you want to run. So, but this is fantastic
to get started.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Cool. I was going to say I've recently been getting involved a lot with the blockchain engineering team from Microsoft. So I've been in the loop a lot on the things that they are building. And cool thing that we have with you guys or your company or whatever it is we have this app builder that is new in Azure, and that allows you to build blockchain app with a web application front end and a mobile app that's built in Xamarin. Why I got involved is because I built actually the mobile app for the engineering team. And all you have to do is supply your smart contract and some metadata around the contract, and we give you a fully featured, full-fledged app that is available as a web app and a mobile app for you to use. So it's like a proof of concept accelerator. If any of you guys are interested in seeing that, I'd be happy to show that maybe at some point as well in like a different sort of, I don't know how it really relates to .NET Mobile. Yeah, I guess it's mobile. Yeah. But I'll be doing a talk in Atlanta on App Builder. On App Builder. Everything has app something. App Center, App Builder. On App Builder February, and then there's actually like a hackathon there. We're going to go learn a bunch of stuff. So I'll be happy to come back here to you guys as well, if you guys are interested. Thanks, guys. That's all I have. Yes.
I need to wait for revenue and the markets.
Revenue?
Yeah. So you passing the applications. Yeah, true. Then drag it. So these
Clicks, yeah.
all that. Okay. There are some revenues. No, there are some video or
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
depending on your actual.
I don't know if that's as far as you just being able to track the event that the user clicked on this and they wanted to purchase X amount, whatever. Then as far as like had it actually gone through and had to purchase that, if there's any integration with third-party things that you're talking about. Right, well, moving on to the questions, this is all I had. I'd be happy to show you guys anything else if you want. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mahdi. Thank you all for coming out. Just a reminder, next meetup, February 20th. Tell your friends if you enjoyed it. I'll make sure we have a really great topic for February. Don't have anything lined up yet. Like I said, my speaker just failed, but I'll make sure we have something great to present. And I hope to see some of you next Tuesday at the general.net meetup. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you to Mahdi. Another round of applause.
Thank you. I can maybe do
Do you have any bandwidth or YouTube?
I'm swamped right now because I was already trying to.
Do you know anybody who's recommend?
It's pretty close. I think I've got your card. I think I did. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we'll get your video out there.
Good, appreciate that.
We could even.
Do you need like a screen? Okay, sure. I have 4 weeks. I have YouTube.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, I know that.
I emailed thousands of people. To make short. Yeah.
I'm trying to drag like trends that I know
Everybody had conversations.
I was in one for quite a while. I was in. Sometimes. Yeah.
Were there any dogs? You're saying
Yeah, so I still
There's other guys out there that are
I use it for each calls.
and just go straight.
Yeah, it's like email me.
I would say like what you're it's just going to be hard to find, right?
Sure.
I think what you're doing is
Right on track, yeah. I found one guy who just came earlier, Chad. He's pretty good. He's more of an Android person. I need an iPhone. I have two people, then I'm like,
right.